Hey, everybody. I've got a pivotal figure in health and the wellness industry. I've got Karen Thomson. We were having a great time chatting before. We've just got to pick that up. Karen, thanks for coming on. It's great that you're here.
Dr. Rob, it is such a privilege to be here. I'm so excited. We had the best conversation and I can't wait for it to continue.
I think we had the podcast before the podcast, but you are, without question, a health advocate. So we're going to talk about health. And I have a funny feeling we're going to do a 360 view to a lot of health interesting topics. But sugar is the bane of our existence, yours and mine, and really in America, it's the bane of everybody's existence. The average American consumes 160 pounds of sugar per year. The average American consumes 17 teaspoons of sugar per day. My goodness. Sugar is extraordinarily deleterious. You have put together a sugar-free revolution. Why?
Well, here's the thing. It's actually very interesting and it's not really that much about sugar. Even though sugar is the substance that I'm talking about, the whole concept behind the sugar-free revolution and everything that goes with it is that there is this underlying condition that we're struggling with. And so it's not so much about what we're eating, it's about what's eating us.
Mm.
So, as you know, the definition for addiction is the compulsive pursuit of a behavior or a substance despite the negative consequences, right?
Right.
And so I'll start with my story. I grew up in South Africa to a super famous family. My grandfather was Professor Christian Barnard. He did the world's first heart transplant. My mother was a world champion water skier by the age of 14. I grew up in one of the most incredible families ever. I mean, this was just a very high performing, magnificent family, beautiful as well. So smart and gorgeous. It was a phenomenal, like it was just this combination was incredible. But from a very young age, I started learning that because when I knew my grandfather, he was very famous. He was dating Sophia Loren and Gina Lala Brigida and like these gorgeous people. My mom would tell me stories of how she lived with Dean Martin. It was like, it was this incredible story. And I started looking at fame and success as being something that was an external to it. It was something that was based on the way that I looked. And so I got into the modeling industry at a very young age.
Mhm.
And the reason I'm telling you this is because my whole story and the reason I wrote the book and got into the sugar-free revolution was because of my own addiction. And when I went into the modeling industry, I started drinking, I started doing drugs, and I ended up in rehab at the age of 24. And so I was addicted to alcohol and I was addicted to drugs. And when I worked with my counselor, I realized that my addiction started at the age of 4. And this was probably my earliest memory. And it started as an addiction to sugar. From that age, I was already looking for an external substance to soothe these internal problems that I had. And so sugar turned into alcohol, alcohol turned into drugs. And I had a severe eating disorder being in the modeling industry. I wanted to be as thin as possible. This was in the 90s. Was not when this healthy body image that's now out there was popular. This was the Kate Moss era. This was like the thin waif-like era. And I did whatever I could to stop myself from eating. And I was never good enough. Nothing that I did was ever good enough. I was never beautiful enough. And I suffered from, this very low self-esteem, very low self-worth, where I woke up at the age of 24. It was September 12th. And I remember had been on a very heavy bender. I woke up probably about midday and I like stumbled to the bathroom and I just started drinking water from the tap because I was so dehydrated. And I looked up and I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, I don't recognize this person staring back at me. What happened to this young girl who had so many dreams, who wanted to become a neurosurgeon, who wanted to make a meaningful difference in the world? Where is she? I'm 24 years old and I have nothing to show for what I have in my life, but this like just field of broken promises and like broken dreams and lost opportunities. And I looked at myself that morning and I thought to myself, I don't know if I want to live. I
Wow.
don't know if I can continue living. And in that moment, I had to make a decision whether I wanted to take my own life or whether I wanted to choose life. And in that moment, I decided and I made a promise to myself that I would live a life of passion and purpose every single day of my life. And I went into rehab, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my whole life. And I stayed there for 9 months. And then my ex-husband and I opened addiction treatment centers, and that's where I came to learn about sugar addiction, and opened one of the world's first inpatient sugar and carb addictions programs in the world with a South African professor called Professor Tim Noakes.
Pretty
So
well, pretty well known. You're dropping names now. I love it. It's great. No, your story is truly compelling. So many people don't realize in America, a minimum of 50% of Americans are addicted to sugar. Sugar works with the reward center in your brain. Did you know that when mice were offered sugar or cocaine, 94% of the mice took sugar?
yeah,
So that is how much it lights up somebody's brain and how addictive it is. We as Americans are addicted to sugar without question.
absolutely. And after I did this program, I was asked to write this book on sugar addiction. And so it wasn't that I decided that I wanted to write a book. I was asked to write this book. And I mean, this is what the book looks like. It's being republished May
Great.
2025. But I'm not a scientist, and I'm not a PhD, and I never got my doctorate. But what I am very good at doing is getting the right people together to put the right information together. So I got a neuroscientist called Dr. Nicole Avina to write a whole chapter on sugar addiction and exactly what you're talking about. She's one of the people that did the research with these rats on how they chose sugar over cocaine. I mean, it's mind blowing. And then we're saying, well, these studies are not replicated in humans. Yes, they absolutely are. Our obesity epidemic, the numbers that you have just told us, aren't those the real life manifestations of these studies that we're saying are not replicated in humans?
Without question. It's an interesting thing. Going back to the 80s, I predate you considerably. And, trying to get into shape, lifting weights, bodybuilding, fitness, lifting, that kind of stuff. It was protein and carbs because fat was the foe. If you ate fat, you got fat. And we had a lot of carbohydrates. And I think that started the problem. I think coupled with the idea that a lot of these food companies started to make the ultra processed food. And they knew because the people who owned it, like RJ Reynolds, said, how do I get people addicted to my product, my food product? Well, they got them addicted because they knew about nicotine and tobacco. So they added sugar in foods, and hence the starting of ultra processed food and this addiction, probably in 1988 when he first bought his first food company. So like I said, it predates you. You're talking in the 90s, we're already eating sugar, sugar, sugar. To this day, as a functional medicine practitioner, people said, I'm a little concerned about fat. And I'm like, fat is not your foe. It is your friend. It is carbohydrates. There are no essential carbohydrates in this world. There are essential acids and essential proteins. So give me a step, just one step to help my patients and everybody listening in decreasing their sugar intake.
Well, okay, first I have to just make a comment on what you said. You know what really enlightened me so much was finding out about this concept of the bliss point, right? And Howard Markowitz was an engineer, a chemical engineer, and he essentially developed this concept of the bliss point. And our food is chemically engineered to be addictive, okay? It is chemically engineered to light up these reward centers in the brain, to release dopamine, to make us feel so good when we eat it. But it doesn't make us feel satiated. So we have no idea the calories that we've eaten in that point and that we can't eat anymore. So it overrides that whole system and it leaves us craving for more and more and more. And that is the concept of the bliss point and what all these ultra processed food companies are using to make us eat more and more and more. And so I found that so fascinating. That's why Oreos are the most addictive food, right? That's why once we start eating these foods, we cannot stop. I mean, can you do the same thing with a roast chicken or a piece of steak?
No, no, there's a satiety involved because of fat. There's a satiety involved because it's nutrient rich. Sugar has no satiety point because it has no nutrients. So I think that's what people don't realize. You keep eating and eating and eating because your body isn't inherently searching for nutrients. It's just jacked up on energy. And, when you think about it, sugar is really a drug. Foods are drugs. I mean, haven't you seen somebody get stressed? I mean, you were talking about some things you were going through. You using food as a vehicle to, get high, if you will.
Absolutely. And the consumption of sugar and refined, and sugar, when I say sugar, I really mean refined and added sugar or processed food. I'm not talking about a whole fruit, like fruit in its natural state where there's fiber and everything else. Sugar follows all the same cycle as other types of as other addictions. So it's the craving, the binging, the withdrawal. So you consume the sugar and the carbs, and like your dopamine spikes and your blood sugar spikes, and then all of that stuff drops, and you go into these withdrawals when the sugar's not available, which leads to so many cravings when you're not even hungry. So there's so many studies and things that show that sugar follows the same pathways and the same structures, whether it's from a psychiatric angle from the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, or whether it's a physiological angle as addiction to cocaine and heroin. And it may not make you feel like out of control in the same way that those drugs do, but it definitely has the same effect on your body.
Fascinating. Okay, so we're talking sugar. Are we talking the cane sugar like on the table, or are we talking fructose?
We are not necessarily talking fructose, although like high fructose corn syrup is definitely a no-no. But there are over 50 names of sugar that gets added to products. And sometimes you can pick up like 5, 6 of those names in one product label, right? And
Okay.
so I like to just keep it so simple and so real. Stick to whole food as close to its natural form as possible. That's it. Like
Simple.
anything with a label, just don't use it. Don't shy away from protein and fat. I think make protein the main part of your meal. Add vegetables and fruits. I'm not a big believer in anything that's processed, so rice, pasta, that kind of stuff. I don't think we need those, and I think it's easy to overeat on all of that stuff. But as in life, and this is my encompassing theme for everything, whether it's emotional, spiritual, whether it's about food, it's be real. Stick to being authentic in the way that you are, behave, eat, put yourself out there in the world. Stick to being authentic. So real food as close to its natural state as possible.
Agreed. Real food as close to its natural state as possible. Watch the labels. If you're going to buy something in a label, look for anything that ends with OSC, because that is a sugar, like you said, to piggyback on what you talked about. Here's one for you. In America, people aged 2 years or older are supposed to limit added sugar intake to less than 10% of their total daily calories. Do you want to run away with that one, or do you want to just leave it there?
I mean, it's honestly, it's tragic and it's criminal and it's just awful. If I grew up in South Africa, my kids who are now teenagers and just about to leave the house, they grew up in South Africa. We did not have access to drive-throughs, to fast food joints. Like kids are not growing up on real food. They have no idea where the food comes from apart from a drive-through. So, Dr. Rob, like, where do we go with this?
I mean, we are in a state that is so disconcerting to me because, my parents, who are in their 90s, still to this day, left food in a better state for me. You and I, we haven't done as good. Well, maybe it's not our fault, but our generations have not done a good job, and we've let them run away. And I mean, there's some interesting concepts to that we could talk about, but they would be political, and we're out. So I want to be the solution guy. I want to know, how do you support individuals in a sugar-free revolution community to remain committed to daily cutting their sugar or not eating any sugar at all? Better yet, no sugar, limit your sugar. Where are you on that?
Okay. First of all, if you are new to this and you've never tried it, I think the best way to do is to go cold turkey. And I say this because I got clean in the 12-step fellowship, right? And it was complete abstinence from all mind or mood altering substances, right? And so for me, at the beginning, at least for 21 days, cut out all refined sugar and junk, everything. Eat real food as close to its natural state as possible. Keep it simple. It does not have to be complicated, okay? So that's the food component of it. And I think this really allows your taste buds to reset. It allows your body to have do its work. I'm not a big detox person. I don't think you have to do a ton of extra things. You're the gut expert and, immune expert. So you can add a ton of stuff to that. For me at the beginning, it's very much just keeping it simple. But I think the biggest thing is, and this is why people don't succeed, is that they don't look at the underlying connections that we have to eating and to soothing ourselves and to rewarding ourselves and to doing so much with food. Food is no longer just fuel. Food has become about celebrating, about soothing, about punishing, about everything. So what my program does, it helps you figure out the food component, but then it provides you with a community of people who are supportive, who have been through the same stuff, and who helps you understand exactly what is underlying this overconsumption of food to the point that you are having negative consequences, that it is affecting your health, whether it's emotional, whether it's physical. And we start by addressing that. And that's when people's lives change. And it may have started with sugar. It may have started with being pre-diabetic or overweight or not liking the way that you look, but it ends up being so much more because you are really discovering who you are authentically and letting go of everything that doesn't serve you. So it's a bit of an esoteric answer, but it's like, it is based on the 12-step addiction model, right? You come in because you're addicted to a substance, but you leave a different person because you're getting rid of the shackles that are binding you.
Wow. Wow. Quite deep, as they say. Now, give my listeners three things to do, just three easy steps to cut their sugar down, because not everybody's going to go cold turkey. I hear you. I'm with you. I'm imbued with enthusiasm when I hear a health outcome can get improved. That said, just give them three.
Okay, three. So the first thing is, I think, clear out your fridge and your freezer and your pantry, right? And just get rid of all the stuff that late night you were like, oh, that chocolate bar is calling me in my pantry. Like, get rid of all that stuff. Like, make your environment as clean as possible and commit to trying to eat as clean as possible at home. When you go out, things are different. But I think right now, try and control your immediate environment and start eating as clean as you possibly can at home. The second one is exercise. Like, I can tell you that I do not enjoy exercise, but I can tell you that I've never felt bad after a workout. I've always left feeling better. And I don't mean you have to go do like a hardcore CrossFit workout like I do, but commit to doing 15-minute walk every single day or 5 days a week. Like, start moving. It's amazing what happens when you actually start getting out there and, you know what I mean, getting active. And then the third one is surround yourself with the right people. Surround yourself with people who want you to be successful. Because I can promise you, when you start looking at the people around you, there are going to be people who enable you to continually do the bad behaviors because it serves them in some way. And there are going to be people who really want you to be as healthy as possible. And that's a difficult one. The third one is probably the hardest, but those are the top three tips I have.
It's funny, that third one, you have to surround yourself with people. I've actually lost friends because they don't want to go eat with me, or they think I'm the food Nazi looking at different things. But it's true. I mean, if I want to go to a gluten-free, dairy-free, low-sugar restaurant that uses extra virgin olive oil or avocado oil versus canola oil, dude, I got one shot at the brass ring and this is it. And this is the fuel that you put in your body. So let's have a cup of coffee. With that being said, coffee, yes? And I put my New York accent on just for you.
I love coffee so much. Like, coffee is like my
Coffee,
best.
sugar, and donuts. I mean, right? Isn't
Oh
that,
no. I have coffee with heavy cream every morning.
and that, I want to make a pit stop because, you talked about muscle and you said you didn't like to work out, but we know that you do. You have a CrossFit background, which we're going to get into. And we talked about someone that we both knew, Dr. Gabriella Lyons, who has said that muscle mass is the longevity organ. But she
Yes.
said so much more than that, in that muscle mass is an endocrine organ and helps you dispense with glucose. So essentially, you didn't say no sugar. You just said be in a position, be healthy enough that when you take the sugar that you can metabolize it and utilize it efficiently, really piggybacking on what she said. So
Yep.
let's take that one step forward. Diets,
Yes.
Mediterranean diet, ketogenic diet, paleo diet, flexitarian diet, etc. What do you like for people to embark on a sugar-free diet or a sugar-free revolution?
It's so hard. I think initially it was very much low carb, which essentially just means like cutting out refined carbs and processed foods and based on Dr. Michael and Mary Dan Eads' protein power, right? So, and then Gabrielle Lyon builds on that as well. So I think so much has changed for me, honestly. But I think right now, what I do personally and what I recommend people do is prioritize protein. Right. So 1 gram of protein per ideal pound of body weight. And so
Love
for
it.
me, it's like 140 grams a day. And yesterday, it's so funny actually that we were having this conversation because
Wait a
yesterday,
minute, hold it. You told everybody your weight?
oh,
No,
I don't care.
you slipped that in. Okay, I'm
Five
185.
foot
Okay,
10.
let's come clean. 185.
Perfect. I feel like this is such a good sharing circle right now. You and I are really getting deep. But yeah, so 1 gram of protein per ideal pound of body weight, right? And so yesterday I tried to do the 145 grams of protein because normally I just eat. Intuitively, I eat when I'm hungry. I stop when I'm full, prioritize protein. And it was really hard. It was really difficult to get my 145 grams of protein in. In fact, I had to have a protein shake to make it up at the end of the day, just because I really was trying so hard to do this experiment of how difficult it is. Because I love to experiment on myself to know what it feels like for other people to get this protein in. But I did it and it was great. And so back to, the ideal diet. I don't like to think that there is an ideal diet. I think people sell things. I like to, as I've mentioned 100 times, keep it so simple. Get rid of refined sugar, carbs. The inflammatory oil thing is a huge thing. Like let's get rid of vegetable oils. So cut the refined carbs and sugar, get rid of the inflammatory oils, those vegetable oils, prioritize protein. If you want to keep it that simple, when it comes only to diet, that's it.
I like it sweet. I do. I like something
Really?
sweet. I want a little sweetness in my coffee. I want a little sweetness in my fake cake. Which sugar substitute do you recommend, Karen?
None. I don't recommend any
Okay,
sugar.
let's do a little rapid fire. Splenda,
No,
equal,
no.
oh, okay. Big question. Stevia,
I suppose it's better than all the others you've mentioned.
monk fruit without erythritol.
I don't know. I think here's my problem with the sweeteners is that we are trying to get rid of that. So the brain can't distinguish between fake sugar and real sugar. And if you are addicted to sugar, I don't want you to have stuff that's going to make you crave more and more and more. And it's been shown that the fake sugars stimulate the cravings as well. So that is with that's why I'm like clean slate to start. And then let's start introducing stuff. But no sweeteners. Go eat some fruit.
I'm with you. So
Yay.
definitely a lot of the artificial sweeteners, they're out because they actually damage the gut and brain barrier. They increase the incidence of dementia and stroke by 2 to 3 times. Now, stevia, yeah, I get it. It's the girl with the curl because it's a natural sweetener. The one that I would lean towards, I'll give you two. I happen to lean towards allulose, which is a rare sugar. People have heard me talk about it. And if you really want to have sugar as well, but that'll spike a little bit of your glycemic index, it would be coconut sugar. But allulose first, coconut sugar second. Are we good with that?
We
In
are good with that. Are you friends with the RX sugar guys?
Yeah, I am friends with them. I use it
With
in my
Dan?
coffee all the time. I put it on my gluten-free French toast, which is
Oh,
more keto. Yeah, yeah. I have some carbs. I have some. I try and limit them.
yeah.
Fortunately, I don't have to make a living taking my shirt off or anything like that. I know I can hear people say, "Hey, Rob, it's a good thing because I don't want to have to pay your rent." But
I
okay, I say
know.
it for everybody. Here's the other question: When does intermittent fasting come in with your no sugar?
That is a very individual, that's very individual. And there's so much noise right now about how it damages you or how it's good for you. I'm very good friends with Dr. Jason Fung, who he spoke at a conference I organized in South Africa in 2014. Like it was the first time that these low carb guys came together in the same place. Gary Taub, Steve Finney, Eric Westman, Jason Fung, Zoe Harcombe. It was the first time they all met in person. And it was because I organized this conference to support Professor Tim Noakes, who was being attacked by the dietitians for saying low carb was safe for diabetics. Anyway, long story short,
Yeah.
um, fasting has a place. I am not going to be the one prescribing it to anybody. People like you who actually work with people one on one and are healthcare practitioners are the ones that can do that. I have seen phenomenal results, especially in men who are either diabetic or pre-diabetic who use fasting, but I am not an expert on it. And so I don't prescribe it. Do I do it? Absolutely. Do I feel that it's beneficial to my body? Sure. But it's very hard for me to meet my protein target when I am fasting, and I'll tell you that much.
All really good points. Men are like push buttons. You can intermittent fast them, no problem. Women of menstruating age poses an issue. I think that if we can get Dr. Funk on, we would love that. I would
Oh, he
love to
would.
go at it with him on intermittent fast. Go at it in a good way, not
Yeah.
like Lane Norton way where I attack him. Oh, I said it, huh?
Yeah, I'm
I
so
would
glad you said
love
that.
him
I'm
to.
so glad you said that though, because those bros, there are a couple of them online, and I swear a ton of time I don't say things because I'm so scared of them. I have to be honest, Dr. Rob. And it's like, because they attack things. They attack things that they have no idea about. Lane Norton and his crew and those other people like that have never suffered from an eating disorder. They are
Mm.
not in a female body. They do not understand what we are going on, yet they will come out and be so nasty and mean and rude about so many things that are so dear to my heart and that I see so many women struggling with. And it really pisses me off.
I don't know where to go from there. All I'm just saying is that men and women, two sides of a coin. I would love him to come on. I'd love him to, just let it rip. Let's go. Let's see where it falls. I'm not afraid. I think he's a wonderful power lifter and bodybuilder, and he's a smart guy. But I agree with you. I don't want to turn this into a Lane Norton moment. He is without question thinking sugar substitutes are fine. Intermittent fasting doesn't matter. He kind of like gets behind the idea of just these kind of studies and things like that. So I'll close it by saying, I feel your pain. I got the empathy and sympathy. I'm with you. Let's get him on. Let's have it. And if I get him on, you come with me because I'm going to need your help because he's a big guy. I'm going to need a little backup
Wait,
without
actually,
question. But speaking of big guys, you used to be involved with CrossFit.
I did. And honestly, it was the reason. So we were moving to the United States anyway to set up a sugar addiction obesity center. And I was doing talks around the world on sugar addiction. And this is 10 years ago. And it was at a talk in San Diego that I finished my talk and I walked back to give the microphone back to the AV guy. And this man stops me and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I loved your talk." And I was like, "Thank you so much. What do you do?" And he said, "My name's Greg Glassman and I started CrossFit." And I was like, whatever. Because, my grandfather did the first heart transplant. I can't tell you how many people came up to me in my life and said to me that they were involved in it. I believe no one. I believe nothing. Anyway, I was doing CrossFit in South Africa, didn't realize it had a founder because we didn't have access to the CrossFit games or anything on TV there. Text my brother who's big time into CrossFit. I'm like, "Hey, this man just stopped me. His name's Greg Glassman. He said he founded CrossFit. Is he lying?" And my brother's like, "No, it's true." Greg and I become really good friends. He comes to South Africa to do a talk. And then when we moved to the United States, Greg calls me up and he's like, "Hey, I want you to come and work for me at CrossFit and set up a division called CrossFit Health." And I was like, "I am in." This man is one of the most incredible human beings in this world. What he has done for fitness and health is so profound and is unparalleled. Honestly, like he was talking about no sugar way before it was cool to talk about no sugar, like before I was even born, right? And he was willing to like put together these exercise modalities and create this program that is so effective and has changed my life, has changed my body so profoundly, and has changed my view of community and of working out in the biggest way. And I think what happened with him was absolutely devastating. I think him being forced out from CrossFit by the trainers and some of the athletes was, I mean, I would like to call it criminal, but I don't think I can say that. But it's probably a blessing because he's back.
Right.
And he is back with his co-founder, Emily Kaplan, who is a powerhouse of a woman. And they have started what is called the Broken Science Initiative. And we have a medical society attached to that. We are doing events across the country. And he's going to venture back into fitness.
That is great to hear. I saw CrossFit 15 years ago. I had a lot of patients utilizing it. And just like any athletic endeavor, if the coaching isn't solid, people will have injuries. It
Of
happens.
course.
But I mean, what he did was, I mean, nobody's done more for Olympic lifting. Only Olympic lifters Olympic lifted before. I
Yeah,
have a rower, a concept rower in the devil machine in
you do.
my house right now because of him. I
Oh,
utilize it all the time. What was a burpee? I mean, only people in the army knew what a burpee was, a jump thrust or a squat thrust, excuse me. Um, who knew how to do a pull-up? Who knew that women, please forgive me for this, could do a bevy
yeah.
of in row in order pull-ups. Amazing. Wow. I mean, he definitely revolutionized the idea and these high intense interval training. And now 15 years later, a lot of people have done a really good job adapting it for people like my age who just can't recover. Hey, I did a great CrossFit workout. See you next month when I'm recovering. And they've really transformed it into a bedrock of fitness. And who would have thought that I could go travel and get a 10-minute workout and be done?
Exactly. So effective. So
Mhm.
effective.
And I hate to jump rope, but my God, the first double under I ever got, which is rare, that was a big deal for me. It was birthday party cake.
That is amazing. Congratulations. That's a big one.
That was a big one. That's very rare that I can do that. But I mean, jumping rope. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, push-ups. We did push-ups in high school. We bench press because we want to be big and strong. Because it's real functional to lay on our back because everybody does athletic events on their back pushing like this.
Right?
I'm not making fun of it. It has its place and
Yeah.
everything like that. But obviously, it's true functionality. Now, you're involved in something called Broken Science Alternatives. I know you mentioned it, but tell me what the ultimate goal of that is.
I mean, Broken Science Initiative is absolutely incredible. They are looking at, when I started CrossFit Health, well, when Greg started CrossFit Health, really what we aimed to do there was look at how science is so broken, how many problems there are, what the issues are with a lot of the research that comes out. So, I mean, you'll know this, the replication crisis, the problem with p-value, like all of the stuff, like most of the research that comes out is false. John Ioannidis talks about it. Like it's not just that, but Greg has been on this train because of his father being like a scientist for so many years and hammering this into him as a child that science as we know it is cannot be replicated. So that means that it's not true, right? If you do a study that finds something and you cannot replicate it, that doesn't mean that what you found is true. It's only when we can start replicating these studies that we can actually believe that something is true. And so we started doing a ton of work on CrossFit.com, putting out articles by various scientists. People wrote for us on how science is broken, looking at the diet heart hypothesis and how that was failed, looking at, cancer as a mitochondrial disease, as Seafried puts forward. We started going into the spaces that nobody was willing to venture into and looking at really how science is broken. And so Greg really has taken that with Emily Kaplan, and they are pushing that forward in a big way. And so you can find out more about going to brokenscience.org. So it's brokenscience.org, and it's the Broken Science Initiative.
Broken Science Initiative, outstanding. So you're anti-carb, if we can say that. Yes, no?
I'm not anti-carb. I
Okay.
love myself some carbs. I I believe that sugar and maybe the use of the word sugar is a little simplistic. I believe that refined carbs, processed, highly refined carbs are addictive to some people. Just like with alcoholics, if some people drink, they cannot stop, right? And they have negative consequences in their life. Whereas I have other friends who can have one drink and walk away and never think about it again. I think that for some people, sugar and refined carbs are a problem. And those are the people that I want to help.
Well,
But I'm not
it,
anti-carbs.
okay. I'm happy for the clarification. Now, people are going to say, what do you eat?
Yeah.
What do you eat? And what do you eat when you want to go off the rails just a little bit?
Do you really want to know what I eat?
Inquiring minds want to know.
Okay, I'll take you through yesterday. Why don't we take yesterday as an example?
Sure.
I woke up, I had a cup of coffee with a tablespoon of heavy cream. So I don't just pour like the whole bottle of
Mhm.
heavy cream in there. I had that. I then went and I had a protein shake before I did a CrossFit workout. It was a long 45-minute CrossFit workout. It was a ton of running, lunges. We did squats. Um, and I did some deadlifts as well. So it was 45 minutes of that. And then after that, I went for coffee with some friends and I had a coffee and I had 2 boiled eggs and 3 pieces of bacon. Okay. So I'm on 40 grams of protein. This is because I'm like testing my protein now. Then I went home and I had just ground beef. So I had ground beef because I'm doing a little bit of carnivore right now as well. So this is not my normal thing. I was really trying to prioritize protein. So ground beef, grass fed from a great farmer up here in LA who sends me his regeneratively farmed, beautiful meat. Had that. And then I went to a friend's house and I had a beef stick. And then her husband had made pulled pork. So had pulled pork. And then I was only at about 120 grams of protein for the day. So came home, had my protein shake that I mentioned to you, and
Mhm.
went to bed with my 145 grams. That's what I had. So no refined carbs,
No
nothing.
refined carbs at all. Not too
No.
many carbohydrates in general. Some fat, animal fat, saturated fat, grass-fed
Yeah.
beef, etc. High quality protein. It
High
sounded
quality.
yesterday, you had squats and deadlifts. You were doing a lot of weight resistance.
Yes, a ton. It was a lot. And I think for me right now, being the age that I am, I'm 44, I really need to prioritize building muscle because it's a buffer against illness later in life. And I'm like, I go to the gym, I don't necessarily do a ton of cardio, I do a lot more weightlifting, and I'm not building muscle. Like, what needs to change in my body? And that is why I started looking at how much protein I'm eating, because the only way I'm going to build muscle while I'm working out is if I have enough protein, right?
Protein is without question the essential macronutrients.
Yeah.
Fats are 1A, carbohydrates lower down on the list. But it's funny you said 44 because, of course, you don't look your age. Never ask a woman her age. But more so than that, there was a study that just came out. There's two inflection points in people's lives, and the ages are 44 and 60 for health.
So that.
So look at that. You're right at that inflection point. So put that muscle on.
Yes. And also there were other things that declined at 44 and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm screwed." But it definitely gave me more it motivated me to really be like, okay, this is a really important age for me. And it's interesting that naturally I'm wanting to really optimize things for myself
Mhm.
because there seemed to be from that study a lot of decline in various aspects. It wasn't just muscle loss. It was memory. It was a ton of other stuff. And I can't recall exactly what the study said. You may be able to.
It was mental and physical decreases that
Yeah.
were noticeable at 44 and 60. Now, having passed the 44 and hovering closer to the 60, you still want to be, functional, both physically and mentally. And to speak to carbohydrates, they are a dirty fuel to the brain. Fat is a really clean fuel to the
Yeah.
brain. So that's a great point. So let me ask you about something that you may consider a little decadent.
Tell
Honey.
me.
Honey, what do you
Honey?
say?
Uh, you know what? When when anyone mentions honey now, all I hear in my head is Dr. Anthony Chaffee talking about honey being the bee's like waste product. And so
Oh my goodness.
I, but okay, here's the thing. I actually, when I'm not on this like strict, like trying to figure out the protein component in my own diet, I can tell you that I love a good Greek yogurt with a little bit of honey and a couple of nuts. I love the crunch. I love the sweetness. I love the texture. It's something I feed my kids. Because my kids do a ton of sport. My son plays football every single day of his life, hours and hours. And my other son does a ton of jujitsu and Muay Thai. And I'm like, these kids cannot survive on the same diet that I am,
Right, right.
just to make it clear, right? So here's the thing, like when I say stuff, it's very individual. And I think that's such an important distinction to make. I'm not here feeding my kids only protein every single day of their lives. Absolutely not. Like, I think that their energy needs, they're 6'3", they are shooting up, they're massive, are very different to mine. And so, how do we reconcile that?
That's a great point because you're doing two things. One, you're setting the standard for them. They're seeing my parents eat. My mom, my good Jewish mother, always wanted me to eat healthy. So let me tell you what my lunch was almost every day. And I have
Kelly.
to admit this because I'm anti-gluten and anti-dairy. I grilled cheese sandwich. So it was white Wonder Bread with butter, so it didn't stick to the pan or the grill. Cheese, and it was like American cheese. It wasn't even like a cheddar cheese. It wasn't even like a Parmesan cheese.
It was
Because
like a plastic,
don't eat Parmesan cheese, they eat American cheddar cheese, or American cheese, if you will.
which I
So,
can't understand, but yes.
but it's interesting how the idea that she wanted me to eat well really resonated, and that was a seed to allow me to harvest this tree of health to share with others so I could be a bounty for other people because, it's one thing to find your gift in life. It's another thing to share it with everybody else. So people don't realize because people may know who you are, they're looking. We talked about that, about, a couple of celebrities out and everybody's looking at them. People are looking and you never know what little seed you plant in somebody's life, good and bad. So I always try and eat as well as I can outside, certainly in my local area. However, you said we're going to try and catch up. We're going to get the families together in
Yeah.
New York. Here's my question. So if I had to bring you something from New York that was a little sweet or off the mark, what would you let yourself have? If you were to cheat, not that you would, but if you were.
I do cheat all the time. And because it's gotten a lot better, I couldn't do that at the beginning. I am obsessed with chocolate mousse.
Okay.
So I expect you to come with a big jar of homemade dark chocolate mousse. So it's heavy
Chocolate
cream
mousse. So
and it's chocolate and it's a little bit of like gelatin.
rapid fire foods. Okay, rapid fire desserts for you. Here we go. Organic dark chocolate, yes or no?
Yes.
Chocolate mousse. That was a gimme.
No.
How about a gluten-free bagel? Hear me out. Picked with the best sturgeon and the best lox in New York City.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. That is
Absolutely.
my birthday treat. That is
Oh,
my
that's
birthday
amazing.
treat.
I love that. Here's the other thing about food, right? It's if we are preparing it at home, and I know exactly what's going into it, it's very different from the stuff that we buy outside in places that we don't know, right? And so I think there's a lot to be said to cooking at home, not just in how we know where our food comes from, what's in it, but the whole experience that goes with it. The last week, it's so interesting that we're having this conversation now. The last 2 weeks, I have made a point of cooking every meal at home for my kids.
Mm.
Dr. Rob, my relationship with him has improved so much because of this gift of service, this gift of connecting, this gift of providing them with so much more than just a meal. And it's such a beautiful thing. And I think it's such a lost thing in the American society. It's something that I lost when I came here. Because
Right.
life is busy. You have to be productive. You have to be on top of things. You have to be working like 36 hours on a 24-hour day. It's like, it's just crazy. And I come from South Africa and I come from a country that has so much heart and so much love. And there's so much emphasis of family and being together and creating these moments of magic. My mom used to say, life is about creating moments of magic. And it's
Mm.
not about just taking somebody on a massive vacation or doing something that costs a ton of money. Like these moments of magic can be and should be created every single day in our homes. And that's what I'm going back to.
Food, especially good food, can be celebratory. I agree.
Exactly.
It's knitting the family. It's interesting. And you learn things when you're married. It comes out. I'm almost married 20 years, and I get smarter every day because I live with my wife, and it's great. She shares. So we went to the coffee shop, organic coffee, and there were two people there, and it looked like they were on a meetup date. And it was obvious that they both weren't interested. My wife said to me, she says, it's clear, if you know that it may not be a good date, you want coffee because it's quick, because a meal is long and binding. And she said it yesterday.
Oh,
And I was like, our first date was dinner. I did okay. But the whole premise is it's inherent in the thought. I mean, if you have to sit down and have a meal, it's time, it's involved, and it's a really good thing. It is a bond making event.
yep. Absolutely. It's so, so beautiful. It really is.
Now, do you have any recipes for anybody? Everybody loves recipes. Do you
Um,
have any recipes? Or you have access to some place where they
I
can
mean,
get a sugar-free recipe? How can
I
they get
have.
the book?
And oh, okay. So the book right now is available on Amazon. However, I think you should wait until May when the new book's out. It does have recipes. But here's the thing, like there are so many phenomenal recipes everywhere right now. Like you can Google what ingredients you have in your pantry and it comes up with a recipe. It's fantastic. I've been cooking stuff just I just Google. I'm like, because Google spits out everything. It's like, I don't like seed oils. Okay. So no seed oil recipe that uses chicken. That's a Mexican type dish. And it comes up with the most phenomenal things. Thank goodness for Google and AI and everything else that's happening because literally everything we need is at our fingertips. I am not big at selling stuff at all. You can find everything you need for free through going through accounts like yours. You have so much phenomenal information on so many topics in short, consumable clips. I don't have to sit there and listen for an hour or 20 minutes to find exactly what it is I need, right? And that's what the beauty is of social media. And that's the upside. There are many negatives, but that is one of the upsides is accounts like yours that give information freely to people to find exactly what they need in a short space of time.
What's next in your Karen Thomson journey?
Oh, so many things. So I'm currently husband shopping. So maybe that, I don't know, I'll invite you to the wedding if it ever happens.
Love
Um,
weddings.
it's not going so well. So.
You're going to have a sugar-free birthday cake, so I'm ready to go.
Oh my God, it's your birthday soon.
I said a birthday because I know you're going to do a dual purposed event.
I'm going to do dual purpose. I'm just going to combine everything into one for sure. No, so my new book's coming out. I'm very excited for that. I organize events that I'm passionate about. So Dr. Gabrielle Lyon's next event is going to be April 26th, 27th in Houston, Texas. We haven't announced that, but it will be on her website and through her newsletter first. So sign up for that. Then I work with Greg Glassman and Emily Kaplan on the Bergen Science Initiative, and we've got some phenomenal events coming up there. And then, I feel like I'm in a space in my life where I'm really reassessing what it is that I want to do. I know that I am most passionate about addiction and sobriety and helping people remove this search for external meaning and purpose and find it within. Because that's what happened for me with addiction. Like once I stripped myself of like looking for an external search, stopping this external search for meaning and I found it within. That's when my life truly changed. And so I'm trying to figure out what that looks like and where that goes. But right now I have quite a few things that I'm focusing on. And then I have my kids. My son is a senior. I have him for a couple of like a year and then he's going into the wide world by himself. And so being a mom is my most important thing right now.
Outstanding, outstanding. We've got to do this again. This was
Yeah.
fabulous. This was, like you said, take my notes, put them down. Just talk to me, Rob. Let's have a conversation. And we did. And it was great, exciting. Let's do it again. I wish you all the best. By the way, your journey, your story, truly authentic, really sincere, and quite compelling.
Thank you, Dr. Rob. I really appreciate this opportunity more than you know.
I appreciate your time. Karen Thomson, Dr. Rob Silverman, Proven Health Alternatives, always yours in health.